Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube magazine, The Spiritual Citizen. My guest today is the first women naturalist of the country, my friend Ms. Ratna Singh. She has been working in jungles since the year 2006. She loves the 4x4 wheels, tigers and everything about jungle. She has been prominently featured in leading newspapers and magazines like Femina, Hindustan Times, The Quint, Asian Age, various travel magazines to name but a few. She is a strong voice behind Save the Tiger campaign. She has participated in Horlicks #Stand Strong movement. She is a Karamveer Chakra Awardee. Ratna's work has been recognized by United Nations, International Confederation of NGOs, and many other national and international organizations. She has driven film stars, celebrities, and everyone in between on tiger trails. She stands strong with a will of steel and a heart of gold. Nowadays, she has taken the responsibility of training the future naturalist of the country. तो चलिए शेरनी से मिलते हैं. Welcome Ratna to my YouTube magazine, The Spiritual Citizen.
Thank you.
Ratna.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Ratna, if we take this interview and if we do not mention Sir David Attenborough, it kind of will be a little incomplete. And Sir David Attenborough has said, I'm one of his biggest fan, and he has said, the natural world is so full of life that it actually makes our own life worth living. And that's, I think, a very, very big statement. As they say, that our life runs in chapters. So let's begin with the beginning. Please tell us something about your childhood, and did you have any teacher or a book which kind of inspired you? Please tell us something about that.
So, my childhood, I would say I went to a boarding school, and my home was, I would come back home, which was near a tiger reserve and lots of dense jungle. And it was a rural setting, so of course I grew up with a lot of animals. So that definitely played a huge part. But, and my mother was a big animal lover, so, that helped. And back in the day, we didn't have social media when we were kids. We didn't have social media, and I went to a boarding school, so we didn't really have all that much TV except for the weekends. I read a lot. I think Black Beauty and Little Mermaid. But the book that's had a lasting impression on me, and I still read it sometimes, is it's called A Little Princess. It's set in India, and it's written by a British American author. It's about this little girl who's, who goes through these trying circumstances, but she sort of keeps her dignity. It didn't have very many animals in it, but I sort of subscribe to that sentiment. So yeah, that's pretty much it about my childhood.
That's interesting. Not only the environmentalist, Ratna, even, a great scientist like Albert Einstein has said that when you look deep into the nature, then that's the time you will understand everything better. And please tell us something about the beauty of the nature of work which you are doing.
Okay, gosh. So I like the wilderness, and I think increasingly, not just me, anybody who lives in the cities also, people are flocking to the jungles, and people understand the value of conserving our natural heritage. What I do is I work primarily in the sphere of sustainable wilderness tourism. I work in the tourism field, but sustainable tourism. And even though I work with private companies, but I work a lot with various forest departments in the country, wherein they take people who are from villages that were relocated from inside the park, in order to train them for, as park guides or as drivers, or, other fields to join the tourism. So because it's these people who live around the tiger reserve or around any natural reserve that bear the maximum brunt of man-animal conflict, be it their livestock being injured or maimed or killed by predators, their family members lives at risk pretty often, and their crops are raided by animals when it's ready. So it's while I appreciate that everyone wants to conserve uh, animals and we talk about saving the tiger, we also have to address the issue of people who are constantly facing this on a day-to-day basis, and then making such people stakeholders in conservation when they start to see that it's the wilderness that's getting them their jobs, it's the wilderness that's educating their kids, putting food on the table, and giving them a better life. That's when I think the real conservation starts to happen, because you make such communities partners. So yes, that's pretty much what I do. I work to train people to join the tourism industry, but the training I impart is it's based on respecting what we have rather than exploiting it.
Mhm. Ratna, like you mentioned, sustainability. And a thought just comes to my mind that Iceland is the only country which is 100% sustainable. And I think that's remarkable. So, as we all know, that there is no planet B where life can survive. Yet, people are not really bothered about the damage which they are doing to the Mother Earth. It can be a small thing like plastic, or larger things like industrial waste or nuclear waste. I mean, the list is really pretty much long. And, Greta Thunberg also said in a United Nations speech that I do not want you to be hopeful. I want you to be in a panic mode. So, why do you think is living in harmony with nature and conserving nature is not something which is required, but it is the necessity of the day?
Absolutely, and I mean, if people don't see it around them with all the floods and the landslides and the the icebergs melting, then I really don't know what to say, because we really are not in a panic mode, and that's it's also got to be systemic. You can't expect people. For example, you talked about waste, and we generate tons of waste. And earlier, say about a decade or so ago, when the products and the lifestyle in terms of the spending capacity in the rural area had not increased as much as it has now, say past couple of decades, so you have now a huge consumer base in rural areas as well. While consumerism grows, there is nothing to tackle the waste that they produce, owing to the fact that they're now consuming packaged stuff so much more. So, be it your packaged foods or fast food, or even online shopping, it's here even in tiny villages. But who's tackling that waste? Anyone who's packaging anything, I think it has to be a policy that it should be biodegradable, rather than trying to whip people and say don't consume, because that is really not an answer. When people in urban areas are consuming, it's not fair to say that people in rural areas shouldn't be consumers. You it cannot. And also it cannot be, people cannot be forced in terms of not to buy. You need a product, it's a necessity, you have to buy it. So why not make the people who are selling these things responsible, and the government has to step in. So I think more than just the common person being in a panic mode. I think the governments need to be in a panic mode. And as far as awareness is concerned, I think a lot of people, a lot of children, school children, young people, and the general public, they're quite conscious now, and they do try. Not enough, perhaps, and not everyone, but there is a greater awareness. So I would say I always hold out for hope. We can clean it if we want.
Yeah, I mean, like, if we want. So, I guess, do you think, if every individual makes a decision that they are going to be living a sustainable life, do you think it's going to contribute towards this? Like not using plastic and, something as small like not using plastic, not doing online shopping, carrying your own bags.
Everything helps, every little thing helps. Now, the other waste that you see is masks, something that's keeping us alive. But on the flip side, it's finding its way into the oceans and streams and filling landfills. So it has to be a collective conscious effort. It has to be it has to be inculcated in the school system. So even the youngest of the children, they grow up with this awareness. So I would say, while not using plastic and turning off the lights and planting more trees is definitely the need of the hour, and carrying your own shopping bags. But I think we have to go one step further, and really start to make more changes than we have, because I don't think now just not using plastic is no longer going to be enough. I think we need to do a little bit more than that.
Thank you, Ratna. So, Ratna, I was about to ask you a particular question, and looks like that question has already been answered by you. And but still, I'll just go ahead and complete my itinerary. We all know that Earth is a very delicate ecosystem. And when astronaut Mike Collins traveled to Moon, and when he saw the Earth from that distance, he came back and he told everybody that it is so fragile, and it is the only shiny blue object which is visible from that distance. And I think throughout his life, just like recently when he passed away, he propagated this, that, we need to really take very good care of Mother Earth. So, like you have just mentioned the certain environmental threats, but do you think global warming can be reversed in our lifetime?
On how drastic a measure people take, because let's say, for example, the lockdown. When the lockdown happened, a whole lot of, while of course the human race suffered, a whole lot of things happened to the world. The air got cleaner, the oceans became cleaner, the animals, they started to move around more freely. Illegal trade in wildlife, wildlife goods trafficking stopped. So a lot of good things did happen, and there were some scientists that did say that the ozone, it's the atmosphere is better. So I do know that it's possible, but at the same time, is it possible to just stop the world dead in its tracks, as it did for a few months last year and even earlier this year? So I'm not sure how that can happen, um, but you never know. So we can only hope. Really, we can only hope. And as far as the world, I just wanted to say, to add to what you were saying, that people say, and we all know, that it's a very fragile environment, and we need to take care of the earth. When what people need to understand is that we don't need to take care of the earth for the sake of the earth. We need to take care of the earth for the sake of ourselves, if we want a comfortable life. Because, you know, all those years ago, the dinosaurs went extinct. And then when the dust settled, the earth regenerated. So it's not as if to say that tomorrow, if we all go extinct, the earth will still regenerate. It's just that it will be without humans. So this I always say, let's take care of the earth, not because we have to take care of the earth and it's a very lofty, noble idea. Let's take care of the earth if we want to live a better life and we want to live comfortably.
And also the future generation, right?
I meant the human race.
Yeah,
I meant
absolutely.
humans.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a very important message, which we are going to give to the listeners via this. And, Ratna, you have traveled all over the world to the most exotic sanctuaries. You have smelled the air and the leaves in I don't know how many jungles till now. So, which was the place which actually took your breath away?
It's really difficult because every place you go, the ecosystem is different, and the animals that you see there are different, and it's a different kind of an environment. For example, if you're in a desert area, then that also pretty much can be breathtaking, but at the same time you're in a dense jungle like where I am right now in Kanha, and you see these rolling grasslands, or for example Africa, you see this rolling grasslands and this larger than life megafauna that sort of takes your breath away. But I would say, for me personally, it's in all honesty, it's quite hard to pick one park. But I would say still, I've loved Bhutan, the wilderness in Bhutan. It's just everywhere you look is pristine jungle. I have loved trekking. I spent a week trekking in the Dachigam National Park, which is in Kashmir, and this was some years ago. It really is like a fairy tale because you've got wild strawberries growing, and you have wild apples and pears growing, and you see the animals, eating, feeding upon the fruit, and the bird life, and the mountains. So that's also incredible. And Central India is, because I am from Central India, it continues to be my top favorite. I know that's not the answer you were looking for, and I've given you like a bit of everything, but it's really quite hard because it's not apples to it's not an apples to apples comparison. Let me put it that way.
You're free to
Yes.
choose. You're free to choose 5, 10, any number you want. This isn't a
Right.
legend.
Right. Okay.
So I was about to come to my pandemic question, which you have very well answered. So I'll not go back to that. But
All
instead, I
right.
would like to ask you one thing: that what do you think are small measures which an individual household can take
Yeah.
so that we have more fresh air for our animals and for the little insect, or you know generally. So just give us a couple of pointers.
I would say that in a household, and that's a question a lot of young people and school children ask me, that they're very interested in conservation and they want to do something for the environment. And all I would say is that they can do, sitting in their homes, they can do things to help the environment. Um, Plant as many trees and plants that you can. If you have a garden, that's great. If one tree is going to, one leafy big tree is going to give you oxygen for your whole family for that day. So you're sorted with your oxygen levels if you just have the one big shady tree. If you don't have place or a backyard or a garden, you have a balcony. Even if you don't have a balcony, you certainly, everyone can put some potted plants in their house here and there. If nothing else, even if a couple of money plants on your writing table, it just will make you feel better to have greenery around. A huge a huge request that I would like to make to people is, stop using disposable stuff. I know it's easy when you're going out on picnics, and I know it's really easy when your kids have a birthday party to use disposable stuff. But I would say, for the sake of the planet, and actually for the sake of yourselves, don't use disposable stuff. if you'd rather, like, you still want to use something that you can throw, use stuff made of leaves and biodegradable, like bamboo, something that can be used even for children. This is especially for children. I'd like to say, for your birthday parties, don't have plastic decorations. Use flowers and leaves, as we have done for centuries, and that's our culture. It looks beautiful, smells great, and at the end of the day, you can compost it, and you have fresh fertilizer for your garden. um, One big thing is, people who travel to the jungles, is the biggest service you can do when you're going out on safari, especially in India, is if you can bring all your waste, keep it in a packet and bring it back with you home, because the cities have a municipal set up to dispose of and sort waste and dispose of it, but in the jungles we still struggle. So the waste just builds up, and it's a huge task then to stop it from not getting into the jungle, to stop it from the animals not eating it, and it getting into the fields. So yes, these are just a few of the small steps that you can do to really help the environment.
Mhm. And as you can understand, though you're much younger to me, that when we were growing up, there was nothing like plastic. Even the picnics, we would carry our steel plates, and one person would be given the assignment of cleaning them. So we have lived that life, and it is pretty much possible. So tell me what,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, as an expert in your field, what message would you like to give to my listener about respecting the wildlife and also nature along with that? Because I guess that's such an important thing.
I think respecting the wildlife, it's a given. One of the things that I like to tell people, especially Indians, is it's in our culture, it's in the Indian DNA to respect nature and the wilderness. Because think about it, we have one of the largest populations in the world, and if we were to compare, the Indian population is almost equal to the population of people in the whole of the African continent. And we always compare that, wildlife in Africa is so great. That's because you have the population of the one country spread across an entire continent. But despite the crushing pressure of the human population on our Indian jungles, despite that, it's our traditions and culture and the inherent respect we have for wilderness and nature that has sustained us thus far. I would say, try and let's go back to our roots, wherein we recycled and everything was sacred, but nature was sacred, and we don't need anyone else to teach us. We know it already. So that's all I'm going to say. Just let's go back to our roots a little bit and start to practice what our not even ancestors, even in our parents and grandparents. So it's not lost. We can still go back to it.
Yes, yes. I mean, absolutely correct. Because in our culture, trees, we pray to the trees, we pray to the rivers, to various water bodies. And I mean, it's an endless list. I totally agree with you over there. So, thank you, Ratna, for giving me this interview. This is the first episode of my season two of the Spiritual Citizen magazine. And I really wanted to start this interview with you because, love for nature, sustainability, trying to do little things in your own way by not creating any kind of plastic or e-waste. This is the kind of message that you have given us today. And this is the kind of message I really wanted to convey through my first episode. And I congratulate you for doing such a marvelous job, for being this strong willed yet very soft woman in the world which was earlier dominated by men. And looking at you, I'm more than sure many youngsters are going to take the encouragement of going and doing a job like the way you are doing and save our mother, this beautiful, fragile planet. Thank you so much. Thank you from the bottom of
Thank
my
you
heart.
so much. Thank you. It was an honor and a pleasure, and I appreciate you giving me the time. So thank you. I appreciate your efforts for having, a show like this, a platform that is called Spiritual Citizen, because I really think that it's offbeat and it will draw together a lot of people who are like-minded. And just to hear the name, it feels nice. It already feels evolved. So I hope you have much success with it, and thank you for having me on your first episode of your second season. I hope there'll be many more, and I'll be there for your 100th season. Good luck. Thank you.